What's up, everybody? Alex here. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you've been blessed with stopping by. I'm happy to introduce a new channel program, I guess, announcing the first installment of a series that I'm calling Five Favorites. And this first episode is featuring my best friend, Sean. So this was just sort of this random idea of, me and him and other friends, but specifically down to Sean and I, just having a lot of conversations over the years, ever since I started collecting. We don't see each other nearly as much. You know, he's got a family and lives far away. But we've been best friends now for, God, almost 20 years, which is just crazy to think about. And so we were just talking and was like, well, it'd be cool to record something and just talk about records and put it on the YouTube channel. And so that's what it started as. And then I started kind of thinking, well, how could I maybe make this something that's an ongoing sort of idea, right? This idea of just pulling friends or other YouTubers or family members or strangers or whoever that is, and maybe we just sit down and we talk about records. And so the concept is simple. Again, the name of this is Five Favorites. The concept is simple. We sit down, we pull five records, and we talk about why they're important to us for whatever reason. This first episode, I think, has an emphasis on sometimes it's artwork, it's inserts that might be involved in the records, it might be color variants on the wax. It could be any number of things. It could just be things that mean a lot to us. And so each episode is going to have, I think, a different flavor, but this one specifically is just really important. A, it's the first one. B, it's my absolute best friend in the world that I would not only take a bullet for, but multiple bullets for. And there's nothing better than thinking back when him and I were growing up, playing in bands together, listening to music together. The whole idea was that this was the sort of building block for our relationship and what our relationship has always revolved around. So I'm excited to bring you the first installment here. It's about an hour long. I'm guessing that's what a lot of these are going to be. You know, truthfully, this is not about views. This is not about engagement. I don't care how many views they get. That doesn't matter to me at all. The whole point of this series is that it's me and people I care about talking about things that we care about and sharing it to anybody who cares enough to listen and watch. And so that's what we're going to do here. Wanted to provide this intro like I'll do for every episode. And yeah, hope you all enjoy the video and the first installment of Five Favorites with my friend, Sean Nelson. I'll go ahead and I'll throw it over to you to sort of talk a little bit about this idea and where it came from and what you got for us. And we'll do like one and one, right? Like you can show one and then I'll show one and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, that sounds great.
we'll start with you first. And yeah, go ahead.
Cool, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Well, I mean,
Long time fan, first time guest.
yeah,
No, I can count on, not literally, but I can count on one hand my the size of my record collection. So kind of finding a handful that I wanted to chat about tonight was really tough. I would say it's the theme is just like pieces that I own that I think are cool, and maybe a couple of them are kind of representative of um, you know, instances of my musical taste. A couple of them are just like pieces I just like owning that I kind of look back to and like I'm really cool. I landed on, getting that one in the past or something like that. So yeah, it's extremely amorphous sort of theme that I approached this with, but I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe we'll do more in the future, and I'll dig more deeply into some of the other ones here. But for now, yeah, these are just like cool pieces that I love talking about.
Yeah, I love that. And for the millions and millions of viewers out there watching this, Sean and I go way back. I always think about this now. This is probably like close to our 40-year, mid-year, third-year crisis, whatever you want to call it. But we're rolling up on 20 years of friendship here. I
That's
guess
right.
it probably was 2004,
Yeah.
4 or 5.
Freshman year social studies, it would have been in high school. So
Yeah. I don't know,
2004.
Yeah. So, we'll have to have a party or something. I don't know, put something on that. But and arguably we've been truthfully, we've probably been each other's biggest musical inspirations.
Yeah.
So, I think this is going to be fitting because so much of the reason I'm into music is because of you, and um, so I'm just really excited to see what you have. But first, are you drinking something, sir? You're on the Beer and Vinyl YouTube channel.
Hey, I sure am. So tonight I have a bourbon barrel aged coffee cake imperial stout from Moody Tongue, here in Chicago. This is a 13.9%, a 2022 vintage, it says.
Mm.
So I sometimes a lot of if it's a coffee infused, it says where they get the coffee from. But the bottle, it might be on the website or something, but the bottle at least doesn't mention. I had a coffee stout recently, and it was had like Intelligentsia's branding on the back, and they kind of do all those like, partnerships and stuff. This is just a coffee cake. So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Moody Tongue. We went to their brewery for my birthday recently, and their stouts I've been just over and over and over again impressed by. So
I always wonder. It's funny. A, that sounds delicious, and B, craft beer is one of these only places that we start using the term vintage to describe things that are a year old. So it's like 2022 vintage, and you're like, whoa.
hey man,
Um,
stuff from the '90s is vintage now. All of a sudden, you go on Etsy and it's like there's like Nickelodeon clock radios that you saw in the commercials, and it's a
yeah,
vintage thing.
yeah.
Can't handle it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I got nothing too fancy, but still finishing off my Founders Vanilla Porter. Just a standard, cool night sipper. We did
It's a
get
good seasonal beer.
a couple of flurries today, so we'll celebrate accordingly. So,
Nice.
well, yeah, well, Sean, go ahead, kick us off. Show us your first. Tell us a little bit about it and what makes it Q.
Yeah. So, first one I'm kicking off with. This is now by the Black Keys. The name of this album is Brothers. Um, this came out in 2010. The record itself. Um, what I First of all, big Black Keys fan. I think Brothers is one of my favorite records of theirs. And if we're talking about a vintage beer from 2022, this is super vintage coming out in 2010. I love the graphic design of it. I think just like the art direction for like the entire album and the campaign and stuff was really, really cool. Have some of my favorite tracks on here from any Black Keys album in recent memory. But the thing that's particularly cool about this piece is that this is the 2010 Black Friday Record Store Day release. So I have learned from my dad. Also, backstory for everybody watching your channel here. You have mentioned the Vinyl Garage probably a couple times now.
At least once.
Uh, at least once. I hail from the Vinyl Garage. My dad is the owner of the Vinyl Garage. He has tens of thousands of records, probably no exaggeration.
You're the heir to the
My
vinyl throne.
I am the heir to the Vinyl Throne. Um, the way that I approach collecting records myself is that since my dad owns basically everything from the 1980s to the beginning of time, I focus on just buying modern releases, newer artists, maybe re-releases of older artists I just really love. But my collection, which I think is kind of a fun complement to yours, is almost exclusively modern groups and modern releases in that way. Typically, everything I buy is like brand new. Nothing, rarely is anything ever used in there. So this is the 2010 Record Store Day release. Also, have learned from my dad to always keep the stickers. So I will read this here. The interesting thing about here is that these are going to be 180 gram discs, but they're cut at 45 RPM. And they call out the pressing plant as well. Also just comes with a ton of bonus stuff in here. It's not only just the disc itself, but it has I'm not going to unfold this, but a very large poster. And then it also has, I believe, a 10-inch in here. Take a look at the piece here. Also so a 10-inch of previously unreleased live recordings, live studio recordings, and I think just like live recordings too. which is just really cool. So this is something that I have played in the past, but don't play very often. But uh, but yeah, I think the reason that and I'm sure you and a lot of people just really enjoy vinyl over many other media types is just the expansiveness that the physical media can give you. And I think this is just a really good example of like it's a cool release, get a lot of extra stuff along with it. Um, Finally, I'll mention that I believe this is a limited run of only 3,000 and is mechanically stamped on the back here. So this is 2,635. It's kind of a foil stamp on the back there too, which just makes it, just a touch a little bit more special there in my point of view. So yeah, that's my first pick.
Yeah.
Pretty, I would say, commonly beloved band, a good record, but taking all of that together, I think this release itself is kind of just a cool piece. I like.
Yeah, and kind of, yeah, obviously for us too, sort of like the hometown-ish hero sort of
Yeah,
band,
that's
right?
right.
Like, I mean, arguably the biggest band out of Ohio, at least over the last 20 years. Um, interesting about that, which is so funny that that was back in 2010. They're still, maybe not still, but up until a couple of years ago, they're still doing that sort of series with their records, with doing a special record store day release, cut at 45. For Record Store Day because I have Let's Rock, I think that was maybe the one from like 3-ish years ago, 3 or 4 years
One of
ago,
the
maybe.
one of the newest
Yeah.
releases, yeah, with the
Yeah, but
electric chair on the front. It looks like a very like it could be like an AC/DC cover if it
yes.
didn't have like yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's the exact one. And I think it comes in like an alternate cover and like all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So it's cool that even she's 10 some years later they're still kind of that continuing that series on Record Store Day, but that was had to have been one of the original ones that they did because not a lot of people were doing Record Store Day back in 2010. I mean, you can tell too with a 3,000 press is not a lot in today's
Mhm.
in 2023. That's really limited, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
um you know I grabbed a couple different things that's kind of all over the place, but I'll get this one out of the way first. I was kind of telling you about it, and I've been um, speaking about this sort of nonstop on my channel, but I don't care. I'll talk about it more. But I think it goes to your point about just like how, important or like why we love physical media, right? So, latest from Peter Gabriel,
Mhm.
I guess my record of the year. I feel almost like that's like there's an asterisk by that because I don't listen to a ton of music from 2023. So it's like of the music I listened to this year, this was my favorite. Um, and so this is IO. But what's great about this is that, Peter, for those who have like followed him, know that he has always been, visual art has always been sort of synonymous with his artistic expression musically. It's always just been kind of a part of his musical and artistic identity. And so there's always a artistic aspect to everything he does. And that was certainly the case during his live show. But what was really cool was, he was doing his live show and was pretty much playing all the songs from this record that had yet been released. They were released via streaming because it was kind of like releasing a song by month and this whole thing. But I didn't listen to any of those songs before I saw him in concert. And so, what was great though is that his live show, obviously being sound wise, was great and musically great. There was such a strong emphasis on sort of art and design.
Mhm.
And what I loved about it was that he was taking time between each song to recognize the artists or the designers that he had worked with or that he had kind of contracted with or whatever that was. There was this whole sort of like visual theme with the entire show, and it really just kind of put you in like this very. I mean, it was like the full experience, right? It was like I almost felt I was seeing less of a concert and more of like I was more at like an art show sort of thing
That's
in a
cool.
bizarre
Yeah.
way. But what was cool is I get the record right, and the record, at least here in the States, I have a lot of international viewers, Sean, but at
Hey,
least
there you go. Good
here
for
in the
you.
States, the record was $40, which
Okay.
in one sense it is a lot. I mean, that's a lot. And also like records are becoming more and more expensive all the time. And I think one of the constant questions is like, okay, well, why is it $40, right? And it's like, well, okay, to be fair, like, you know, it's on two records, right? It's got the gatefold, it's a nice heavy sleeve, there's all of that. But for me, where the money comes in is okay, what else are they providing in the in the package that makes it worth it? And for me, it was this book that was included
Mm.
that really actually walked through not only song by song, but sort of the corresponding art and artist and info about the artist for each of those songs. So it literally goes in order with like what it kicks off with, like with Panopticon. And like this whole, it's kind of hard to show over here, but like this whole side is like a full rundown of the actual artist that was used
Mm.
uh, for the whole show or for that whole piece or whatever. And it's like, I mean, it really is like a full sort of like, art book, right? Like
Yeah,
um, throughout all those songs, all different types of art, all over the place. I love that one. A little intimate, but I do like it.
that's great.
I know it's like the minimalist stuff that you're big time into. Um, where's the one? There was one I saw that was like, oh, that's so Sean. I think it was probably this one.
Yeah, I think I really, when you sent me photos of this, I really resonated with that one and one of the sort of the color prism looking ones,
Yeah,
like a radial sort of like rainbow prism or something like that.
yeah. Um, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, that one's kind of
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah. Um, but it's just very cool how they do like just the write up on the artists themselves or the companies they worked with or whatever that is. And to me, again, that's that's the important thing with physical media for me, right? The same thing that you're talking about of sort of like design, the art, and being able to like touch it and have these. Um, you obviously don't get on other mediums, and even there's obviously nothing wrong with CDs, but I think this is actually included in the CDs, but you'd be thumbing through this little tiny like 5 inch like
Yeah,
CD thing. So to me, it's like that's what makes it. And I say, okay, I'm good paying $40 for that. You're getting the whole package, you're getting the booklet, you're getting all the stuff in it too. So um, yeah, absolutely love that. And favorite record of the year and love the art and everything that's included with it as well. So
yeah, that's I love that pick, and I think to kind of keep going on what you were saying there, the there's such a romanticism around. I'm like picturing somebody getting that, like putting their headphones on and then just like reading the art book in real time while listening to the record. And I think that like to outsider's perspective, that seems to be kind of like the intended way to consume both aspects of those. And like you're reacting to it. And it
yeah,
really, I don't know how many people actually sit down and do that. The active listening versus passive listening is like a very real. But the I can very much imagine Gabriel kind of hoping that folks are like, you're consuming this like one page, just one piece of art while you're listening to this other piece of art that I've made. And like
right.
there's a conversation between the two of them, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's I mean the art piece is a huge part of that, and then the other side of that too that I think it's not makes it sound like we're like super old and we're like back in my day, but the reality too is you talk to like it's like the experiences of like your dad or like other dads
Mm.
out there of like they would buy a record and it would come in this big sleeve and they would take it home and they would put the record on and they would open the sleeve and they knew every member of that band. They know who produced it. They know who, it's like they knew who the manager was. They know who played, who guested on the gong solo. It was like they were everything was so, and that's not necessarily everybody, but that is something
Right.
that you just simply don't get by and not to say that everybody does that with records now either, but at least the opportunity is there to do that if you so choose.
Yeah. Love that.
Cool. Well, go ahead. What's number two?
So number two, all right. This is going to take us around a corner here. So I would say, I'm trying to think of my musical breadth of things I listen to. I appreciate what you said before. I think that you and I like really over the years, over almost 20 years now, have learned a lot and kind of influenced each other musically. in a way that like I'm really appreciative of, and like I think we're really lucky to have that. I think one way that I've kind of branched out from the common thread I think that we all share is more in the past handful of years getting into like electronic music and stuff like that. I think groups like Taiko would be like a modern example of this, but like a more you know the influence of a lot of these modern groups like Taiko would be like Boards of Canada or folks like that.
Right.
There's an artist a musician by the name of John Hopkins, and his album from a few years ago, Singularity. This is probably no exaggeration, one of my I don't know top five albums of all time. Um, John Hopkins, British guy, I believe, say like this is very ambient electronic music. There's a really nice balance between delicate like piano work that is just solo piano work, all the way to very like ephemeral sort of like electronic spacey ambient stuff to like glitchy beat, like very alien like beat almost. Um, so it really kind of spans the gamut. It's music I really like to listen to while I'm working. It's kind of it creates the atmosphere in that way, and it's really easy to kind of like lose yourself in it. Um, and nice sort of gatefold here for this record too. I would say that I pulled this one out not for the actual object itself, but just as kind of like the representation. Like this is probably like a top five album for me. I think notably, I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge of all of the music I listen to in the same way that you do. So I did a little prior research. Um, I think what's interesting about him is John Hopkins. He originally started by playing keys for Imogen Heap
Yeah.
to kind of like really back. And he was a close collaborator with Brian Eno and Coldplay. And he was the producer of Viva La Vida, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the last good Coldplay record. Um, Specifically on an earlier record of his called Insides, there's a track called Light Through the Veins. He sampled his own track in the production of Viva La Vida, and that is the opening sort of synthesizer, this kind of like arpeggio melody that leads you into the first track on Viva La Vida. And I think I listened
Is that
to
Life in Technicolor?
You got it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that little sort of like whistling synthesizer sound at the very beginning of Life in Technicolor that is called back to his earlier record.
That's cool.
And had one of those moments I'm sure a lot of folks have, where like I've listened to Viva La Vida, which is more recent than that, his other album, first, and then listened to his earlier album and was trying to piece together the timeline of all of this. So, yeah, this is my second pick, Singularity, John Hopkins. Yeah, this is a favorite of mine.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Also
cool stuff. It's interesting too. It's like you like fall, you like fall in love with one of these artists or whatever. And you're like, oh, this is great. And then you like do more research and you're like, oh, this is really great. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
like this makes sense now, right? Like it's not just like some schmuck who came out of nowhere, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah. Very cool. Let's see. I'll show this. This is a little bit, I don't know, borders on cheesy, but so do I. And this is something where I feel like sometimes it's done and this is the lamest thing ever. And other times it's done and you're like, oh, okay, I can buy that. That's kind of cool, whatever. I do not buy a ton of reissues. I'm like one of these like people is like I like to go find the original of like some of these classic bands. But the reality is like finding originals of some artists and some albums is just going to be impossible. So or I have to pay. There's no such thing as a rare record anymore. There's only expensive records, and I don't really want to pay hundreds of dollars for a record. And so a couple years ago, this box set was released, and it was sort of like, well, you get a reissue of the record. And I said, check, I need the reissue of that record because I love the record, but I'll never get an original. And then it's like, well, you get a whole bunch of bonus stuff too. Love that. And then third was like, and you get a live show from like that tour. And I was like, ooh, that checks all the boxes. I love that. And so I didn't know until I got it that it kind of came with some additional trinkets. So we've entered the trinket portion of the program.
Nice, perfect.
But the box set is from the Black Crowes, Shake Your Money Maker. So Shake Your Money Maker was sort of the mega, radio, big. I think it maybe came out in 91, 92. I forget the exact year, but it had all the classics. Um, Hard to Handle, Twice as Hard, Sister Luck, She Talks to Angels. Yeah, it's like one of those like greatest hits records that came out. But it comes in this box. I'll open this up here. Nice little. We have to do this to show how high quality it is.
Ooh, yeah,
Yeah,
dense.
yeah. All right, come on here, guy. Come on, come on. Okay. So, you get the friggin' record. Yay. Awesome.
Mhm.
Love that. Classic. Um, you get this, you know, more money maker, the additional kind of stuff. Cute. Love that. It's real nice. You get oh god. Oh god. Okay. Okay. The double live record, which is great. They didn't do a ton of like official live recording, so having one from that tour is just awesome.
Cool.
Um, and then your trinket type stuff. So big book, picture book, a couple of notes in there about all the stuff, but this stuff's fun. There's all that like memorabilia, old school stuff that we
Yeah,
love. And then it, you know, comes with replica set list, you know, you can kind of tell it's in just like, your cheese ball writing or whatever too.
yeah,
Um, it's like you can't if you're writing a set list, you can't just write She Talks to Angels. You have to just write Angels, and it's like, oh yeah, we know what that one is.
sure, yeah.
Um, a Black Crowes excess all areas, like pass thing, but it actually has like kind of like a matte finish on it, so it's kind of
Hmm.
neat. Um, where's this other stupid thing? Oh, here it is. You get a patch. I mean, come on, it's a patch,
It's
So
pretty.
it's
You
like,
can sew that onto your jean jacket that you have.
dude, that's a great idea. That's gonna bring down the value of the box like 14 cents though, and
You can resell it with the jacket that may
with the
be in there.
jacket, be like, sorry, no patch. So it's one of those things. I go kind of like here or there with them. I like it because it's kind of cool and it takes you back. But to me, the box sets are always more about just like the music and what's inside of them and
Yeah,
what they're able to offer. And I will say too, like that whole box was released at like, I don't know. I want to say the whole thing was maybe like 50 or 60 bucks. Like it was not one of
hmm,
the like $120 box sets. So like it felt good of like, oh, I get 4 albums in there and it's a bunch of live stuff and some of these trinkets too. So yeah, I thought it was kind of cool and yeah, fit this theme a little bit. So,
that's cool. That's cool. Do you think that they throw those? I like that when you said trinkets originally, my brain immediately was like, oh, it's a bunch of like Monopoly tokens or something. That's what I pictured.
yeah, of
Um, but do you think that they just throw stuff like that, patch and stuff like that? Like, it's got to cost them like 5 cents to manufacture those. Like, do
course
they
it
just
is.
do that to pad the price of the entire box? Probably.
Yeah, and I do think too, especially like today's thing, it's kind of a callback, right? Of like, you know, I didn't pull any for this conversation, but like, you know, okay, so like take Dark Side of the Moon, right? So Dark Side of the
Hmm.
Moon, obviously, greatest record of all time. Everybody loves it. And it's an expensive record, but a lot of that is because it came with all these stickers and it came with all these
Mm,
pictures. Like it came with like this full thing. And so now it's like, well, if you want the record itself, it might be 20 or $30. But if you want something that's complete with all the stickers and all the pic and all the stuff, then it's going to be a lot more. And so I
yeah,
think in a lot of ways, it's trying to sort of like I got a couple more things that include not necessarily trinkets like that, but just like some of the inserts that are really cool. And so I think a little bit it's like a callback to that sort of stuff,
nice, very
and
cool.
also to get more money.
I mean, always.
Yeah.
Um, cool, man. Well, next one I have for me. This is another, the the record itself is a record, but the artist specifically is kind of a newer artist I've begun to over the last couple of years. I'm really excited about something that you and I kind of just talked about very recently. This is Andrew Bird's latest release, Inside Problems, came out in 2022. I think a couple of reasons that I, really like this record, or at least a couple of reasons why I wanted to kind of bring it up with you tonight. So very recently, my wife and I, well, Jacqueline, my wife to your viewers, we went to go see Andrew Bird. He does a yearly holiday concert at the Fourth Presbyterian Church here in Chicago, and he's been doing this for 14 something years like that. And every year, this is the second year in a row that we've seen him. Every year he has an opening act, and you and I talked about this recently. His opening act this year was Julian Lage and Margaret Glaspie. And as it all unraveled, I had kind of been tangentially familiar with him as a musician, listened to some stuff on Spotify, but also just very nonchalant. I was like, oh yeah, this like Julian Lage guy is holding it up for them, and you were extremely excited being a jazz guy, and proceeded to watch like a really amazing show. And I think just the musical ability of all of these folks on stage. I think like the fact that like Julian Lage played with him and the fact that he was invited is just like so much mutual respect between both of those artists that like just elevates both of them together in a really fun way. I think another thing that makes this record really, really special to me is that when Jacqueline was pregnant, the title track Inside Problems off this record was one of the first couple of songs that we put on this like Spotify playlist that we listened to a lot during her pregnancy. And it has the subject matter of the song and the lyrics and stuff feel very I don't know, kiddish, I suppose, kind of referential to that. And now like that song in this record is like very inextricably linked with August in a really fun way. So just somebody in the spirit of keeping all the stickers and stuff, this is a record that Jacqueline got for me for Father's Day, and I have the card kind of tucked away back here too with that. So yeah, Andrew Bird has become a fast favorite artist of mine.
And how would you for the viewers out there? How would you describe Andrew Bird's sort of music and career?
Yeah, so music-wise, it's kind of hard to say. I think when you and I talked recently, I kind of jokingly prescribed it as like twee. And twee is a genre being a movie version of twee would be like 500 Days of Summer, like a Zooey Deschanel sort of bangs, put a bird on it sort of vibe, right? Forlandia, but not satirical. I would say it's alternative. It's a little whimsical. There's a lot of whistling. There's a lot of violin playing of his. But I think what sets him apart from the rest of that is that he is a technical musician and just like a craftsperson of music. Brings him in the music that he makes to like the next level, where it never feels of an era. There's largely the era of that sort of like alternative twee music where there is a lot of whistling and they're using violins more to guitars or something like that, and those feel of the era. All of this feels very much of him and genuine to him as an artist, and is like I would say the prime example of that genre, and the leader of that sort of like genre, that type of music. So yeah, and then also Chicago, I'm very technically the suburbs, but I think the city has kind of claimed him as their own. So Chicago native in that way too. So I've seen him in concert 3 times now, and it's always a great show.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see. I'll go with it's kind of a quick one. I just in terms of like cool random shit, right? A band that I've been a fan of for a while, I'll be a little bit critical in the sense I'll say something like, not as big as a fan of their old, or not a fan as much as their newer stuff. I prefer their older stuff. But the band I'm talking about is from Seattle, kind of fall into indie folk, indie pop sort of
Mm.
thing. They were on Sub Pop, which, if you're from Seattle and not signed to Sub Pop, whatever. But that band is the Head and the Heart.
Hmm.
Um, so this was a record that came out several years ago called Living Mirage. I think fourth or fifth record. Good album, great album, whatever you want to call it. They were definitely sort of making more of their transition from like their indie folk sort of side more to like pop stuff. Um, but this was a sort of special edition, alternate cover, alternate track list, had additional songs, like this whole like foil situation that obviously shows up super well with my lighting here. Um,
This is looking great.
yeah, it's looking great. But what was cool about this was, this was a record that was sort of on my radar of like, oh, if I see that, I'll pick it up. And then I saw it at one of my local record stores, and it had a it had like a note on it with an envelope in it, and it was like had like a note on it that said something like special release, only like five of the well, we only have five of these, or some kind of like note or something on there. I forget exactly what the sticker said, but basically what it was it was these sort of special editions, and then for certain record stores, the band sent out um, in the record a envelope with like a letter
Hmm.
that was sealed. Fancy, God, it's terrible. ACL,
Oh, there you go.
fancy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so super fancy. We'll call it glitter tape with a like, this is so stupid. But like it's just so great though, right? You're like, I'm sitting here and I'm like telling the story and I'm like, this is dumb as hell, but so cool, right? Like, I don't know. They're the same thing. Um, and it's a card that's written. And so each band member wrote a letter or like a card
Whoa.
to go to these record stores. So it's like a freaking Christmas card. Hey there. Thanks so much for getting this copy of Living Mirage, the complete Mirage recordings. We love you. Uh, love Maddie, Head in the Heart. And Maddie is like one of the, band members in the band or whatever. And so I was like, this is cool. Like this is kind of dope. So uh yeah, this is something that I think is like always going to be like special to me in that kind of way, just because I
Hmm.
know it's not necessarily because it's valuable. Like I don't think it's worth that much outside of like, emotional worth. But I don't know, always like a very kind of cool thing that just went out to certain stores and it was very limited in that way. And I think that's a cool thing that I would love to see. I get it. Like the big artists aren't going to do that, but like I think a lot of these like smaller, like more independent artists, like a lot of them are doing that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
and I think it's really cool because it gets people like us really excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I really love that. I think I mean vinyl has like obviously like really come back around over the past handful of years. And there was kind of that hump that uh newer artists had to get over of just the manufacturing of it wasn't quite as obvious as it, you know, there's only a handful of places you can probably do it now. And now that more and more of them are getting pressed, the opportunity is kind of like that, um, making that media has become more democratized in a way that obviously used to be a while back, and now it's kind of more accessible to folks again, and kind of leaning into the accessibility of the popularity of the format again is really cool, and then also kind of like putting like those little flourishes and stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And again, it goes back to the original point of like the physical media sort of side of it, right? Like that is not, I would not have a connection to that album the way I do if I was just something that was I was streaming or something like that, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay. How many did you pull?
Five.
Five. Okay.
What do you got?
I have four, but I can find a fifth
Oh, okay,
very easily. Yeah.
that's okay. Whatever we can
Um,
do here.
I had five originally, and I wasn't sure. So anyway, so this one I'm going to kind of pull it back. We went to some atmospheric, electronic music. We had some alter alternative twee. I'm going to pull it back to kind of, I would say, where you and I first really got started in music together, and some new genres that we were really getting into. And then also, I'm sure what's really familiar with a lot of your viewers. I'm going to pull some prog back in here, and I think you probably know what the one that I pulled here was. But this is going to be one of my prized, the jewels of my collection. This is going to be the first liquid tension experiment record, 2008 release on Magna Carta. This baby is sealed, um, fully shrunk around there still. I think that this one was limited to 1,000 copies. We talked to Black Keys being 3,000. This one is 1,000. The A B side disc is like a transparent green. C and D is transparent purple. Not that I've seen either of those colors in person. But yeah, I think the story behind this one for me, other than I think we really fell deep into Dream Theater and LTE and just like prog metal really early on. We were kind of first branching outside of just like the classic rock that I think was really foundational to music for us early on. And this is just a wild record, with just some like just truly unbelievable musicians performing on this. I think these days, when as much of a Dream Theater fan as I am, I think I don't often reach for Dream Theater when I'm in the mood for that type of music. I think honestly these days it's like Aiken that I'm like listening to more often than not when I'm in the mood for that. Which maybe that's one of the ones I'll pull next or something, but I have a few of those. The story I'll kind of tell here as to why it's still sealed, because I definitely did not know better. I bought this probably back in 2010 when I was living in Berkeley, California. I was there for a college internship for a semester. You can see the price tag on here, $22.99 from Rasputin's, which is a pretty classic record store on Telegraph Avenue, one block from that Amoeba in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
When I bought this, I was living on an air mattress for a whole semester. So I did not have my record player. So why open it? And it followed me home, and it followed me to going to school again. And my record player didn't follow me there. So there's really no reason to open this. And then it had just perpetually sat on my shelf, sealed this entire time until I think you and I had chatted probably a couple of years ago now and started valuing some of this stuff in both of our collections. And then this one was kind of a surprise. So this will continue to be sealed in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, my what I do need to do is get the second record. I have this one. I have LTE 3 that came out a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That one I have sealed. I do need to get Liquid Tension Experiment 2 to kind of round out the collection. I think an original release of LTE 2, I think, is probably like maybe $150, maybe 120, something like that. Like as far as like records go, when you're talking about collections like this, it's not, it's a special piece that doesn't break the bank. So one day I'll kind of suck it up and snag myself one to.
Yeah, it looks like that continues to be just like my favorite story. Like just that, like when we had that like realization that that's what you had, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like a $400.
I was gonna say, yeah, I've seen it. It kind of fluctuates a little bit, but I've seen it on Discogs like upwards of $400.
Yeah, and what's funny, so LTE 2, the only release of that one was for Record Store Day in 2013, prior to the reissue series that they just put out a couple years ago. And so yeah, same way with that, of like limited to 1,000, and one and done essentially until it was just reissued. But and that's a great kind of point for maybe a different not for this conversation, but like there's always like this conversation of like, if something like that gets reissued, does it drive down the value of what you have? And like in theory it's supposed to, but also I don't know, like, there's so many times where it's like, no, because people still want that original piece, right? Like so I think it depends on who it is, but a lot of times that's what drives up the value so much of records, is that it's the only way you can get it, right? Of like, oh, I have to have that one release from 2008, because I can't have it any other way. And then when it gets released again, it's like, oh, okay, well that's easy. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. What a surprise.
What a surprise. Yeah. And just like the story of like, well, yeah, I'm not going to open it. I don't even have a record player. I'm living on an air mattress. So,
Yeah, and even back then, like dropping, you know, $23 for a record in 2010 felt like unbelievable. I I kind of remember me doing that. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I
yeah.
love this record, but like I don't have anything to play it on. I'm gonna be here for months.
Yeah.
And something I don't know, something spiritual happened and I grabbed it. Now I
Yeah.
have it forever. So
When in San Francisco.
hey, why not?
Um, I have one more that sort of showcases some artsy stuff. And then I
Mm-hmm.
have, I guess, it's two records, but one pick that sort of showcases sort of, I guess, like my favorite, quote unquote, like, or a couple of favorites I picked of colors and or like a fourth side etching. I know you mentioned maybe so. That's what my next ones are, but this one, this was kind of a callback. I feel like to again some of the earlier stuff. One of the main releases, early 70s, 72, is Exile on Main Street by Rolling Stones. Obviously, classic double record, but the other story with that from the actual physical release was that it came with a whole bunch of shit. So similar to like Dark Side and some of the other releases, it's like it comes with a whole bunch of postcards and all those different things. And so again, the difference between buying a $30 or $40 record to a $70 or $80 record is if it has all that additional stuff and it's still. And I think an artist that sort of channeled a little bit of that, I thought this was the coolest thing. And this was one of my favorite records of last year. In a band that this is the only record I own from them. I don't dislike their other stuff. This one just kind of spoke to me when I heard it, and I was like, I really like that. And I don't really have anything else within the vein of this genre, but the band is Wilco.
Mm.
You heard of these guys?
They're popular in these parts, sure.
Yeah. Are they from there? Are they from? Or
Wilco from Chicago?
are they from Chicago?
Yeah,
Shit.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too. Well, this record came out last year. This is Cruel Country. I don't even know how you would explain it because when people explain it to me, I'm like, I don't hear that. But they usually the phrase like alternative country, and I was like, I don't
Mhm.
get that. I don't get that. Um, but it's very moody, great songwriting. Just I don't know, something about this record always spoke to me. I love that sort of cover art too. But um, what I really loved is this that came with it was an actual whole. It's actually pretty impressive. A whole postcard
Oh
like
wow.
booklet um of all these different places, obviously, but this is like a full on like a whole thing.
Oh, that's so sick.
Like it's got obviously like all the address information, all the postcard stuff, where you put the stamp. And so each postcard is aligned with a song that obviously kind of speaks about the different the things going on. Um, so yeah, I thought that was just awesome. Comes with like the lyrics on there. Um, it's just it's the coolest thing. So yeah, this was another just one of those like very cool inserts that I'm like, because the other thing to think about is like, okay, not only does like the physical printing of like that cost
Mhm.
money, sure. But like, as you know, like you have to pay designers for these things. Like
Yeah.
somebody is, probably in their condo in Chicago, like, designing these things and thinking about ideas, or they have a team. Like there's a lot of, when you're dealing with like photographs, there's agents involved. There's so many different
Mhm.
moving parts when you talk about art that it's not just as I think people get this idea that it's just like this band in their like mansion on the hill somewhere that's like, oh, put out that record and charge as much as you want for it,
Mhm.
um opposed to all of the work that goes into sort of the design pieces and how many people have to check off on those design pieces and all those different kind of aspects of the art and the design and the hoops that have to be kind of jumped through to make these things work. So I'm always all in on those types of things.
Yeah, that is, I mean, to be a graphic designer in Chicago to work on a Wilco record, I think would be like a dream for any film. Um, but no, I think that's absolutely right. And like there's, kind of coming back to like the Peter Gabriel record that you talked about, like that is very literally, bridging the music that he makes with the art that other folks make. And there's like that conversation kind of happening there. Like it's obviously this is more first party, I suppose. But there is a conversation with the band. I mean, I'm sure nobody welcomes a graphic designer who's just like sitting in InDesign one day and just like, hang on, I'll lay that bass track down once I finish the cover.
Right.
Um, so there is that conversation of like the team and then the artists and collaborators you do with like the record and all that. So that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. They are from Chicago. I thought that
They are
makes
from
sense.
Chicago.
They are
Yeah.
from Chicago.
Because they have the one of their more famous records is the Marina Towers, the two corn cob looking
Hotel Yankee Foxtrot or Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, or there's a fox on my Yankee at the hotel. It's a whole thing. It's a good one. Yeah.
That's a great one. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I have one right off to the side here that you kind of inspired me to pull out here. I just need to find this real quick. You're getting good at editing. You can edit this out if you really need
No,
to.
that's okay. Yeah, it's
But so in the spirit, I'm just going to talk off frame very annoyingly. In the spirit of getting a lot of stuff with the record, kind of following your lead here. Obviously, Jack White, I think I own a lot of Jack White and Jack White adjacent pieces because he is so invested in like the analog aspect of music that I like his music enough. I like the White Stripes. Uh, anybody who's never listened to the Dead Weather or a Jack White fan, would way rather listen to the Dead Weather. I think I'd rather drop a needle on one of those albums than like any White Stripe record. He plays drums and kind of backup sings in that band. But all of their releases, especially through Third Man, are just like chock full of good stuff. It's like a really high quality press, like all of that. So the one I kind of just pulled out here, I'm pretty sure this has a lot of trinkets in it. It's going to be the Raconteurs, Consolers of the Lonely. So another early favorite of a lot of us. So I have a little sticker there. But even still, I'm going to have to lean back for this one. It's kind of the trifold situation. And then in each one of these, there's these individual like artist cards for like each band member, and it has their initials kind of on the back here of this very I don't really know how you describe sort of like this like old timey photography or something like that. I forget the name of like the actual style of photography that is. And then obviously just the kind of leaning into the you can kind of see on there's your reflection there. Look at that guy. Label here and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think another really good example of, they really put the effort into giving some bonus things in here, really good pressings. Yeah, I think that's kind of the trinkets that come with this one. All the different
that's awesome.
band member photos and stuff like that. So yeah. I will
and
say
storing
records. Sorry?
And a great record.
Yeah.
I've
storing these are tough. I have to get like double thick sleeves to put all this into.
Yeah.
But
no, it's funny you mentioned that. I say that actually kind of like frequently of like, I love the Dead Weather and I love the Raconteurs. But like, Jack White solo and the White Stripes don't really do much for me. I mean, I respect it. I appreciate it. Like, I don't dislike it. It just doesn't like, I never had the moment of like, I need to listen to that. But I have the Dead Weather records, and I had at least that record. I don't think I have the other. What's the other Raconteurs one?
That's a great question. I definitely own it.
Oh,
But I don't know if I'd be able to find it in any like reasonable amount of
because that
time.
one the one you show is "Consoles of the Lonely," right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I can't remember the other one, but I like those. I think did they just do two or did they do more? I don't know.
No, I think there's definitely a second record. And then I also have here, I have both Dead Weathers. So this is Sea of Cowards, their second release.
Yep.
I think on here is going to be track five, and side one is Die by the Drop. We
Yeah.
talk about like a good hype song.
Yeah.
That song gets me like I picture these moments whenever I'm like at a Cubs game, like what would my walk-up song be if I'm going up to bat? And I think like Die by the Drop by the Dead Weather would be one of them.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you know the band Elbow,
Mhm.
um, but the song uh, oh gosh, I'm losing it right now. But there's an Elbow song that always just really hypes me up there in that
Yeah.
same way too. So should I ever be a famous baseball player in my second half of my life,
Obviously.
um, yeah. Then Whorehound, their first one here. So
Some people die just a little.
you got
People die by the drop. Yeah. I love that song. I just yeah, that's yeah, those are great. And I love the covers too, the Sea of Cowards cover. They both the covers are great, but I love the Sea of Cowards cover.
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, my last ones are nothing too special other than there is like this is by no means like a critical like big conversation that happens in the vinyl community, but like every once in a while it comes up with this idea of like the fourth side etching, right? Of because I think I don't know if it's really been like communicated great of like what the point of it really is.
Mm.
And because to me it's like it's been used in ways that I'm like, that's stupid. Like, why are you doing that? And then it's been used in other ways where it's like, well, that makes sense because I would rather have three sides of music than four sides. So where it really started was, there was a big kind of shift when you got to the CD age because you could hold 75, 80 minutes on a single CD. So, when you started getting into the early 90s, a lot of bands were recording albums for CDs. And so it would get up to that, 70, 80 minutes at times. And so then when that would have to be pressed to vinyl or reissued on vinyl or whatever it was, they would have to break it up over two LPs, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the record side is you typically don't want to go over, 22 minutes on a side or whatever, depends on who you ask, sort of thing, right? So like a record you might get 45 or 50 minutes on, but a CD you're going to get 70, 75, whatever. And so what they started doing was sometimes, and this is just more of a rant myself, is like sometimes you'd have a record that gets released today. It's a brand new record out by your favorite local band, and the record it's 50 minutes long, and they want to put it on two records at
Yeah.
33 RPM, and they'll be like, well, it's pressed on two vinyl, so for increased sound quality, and like, yes, is there a story there about how when the grooves are more spaced out that you have more this and more that, and then for the great ear who has a great system you're going to be able to identify that? Sure. But really it's like this is just a pain because I listen to two songs then have to flip a record and two songs and have to flip a record and two
Yeah,
songs,
really getting your steps in for that whole album.
and I'm not trying to. And so for me the idea of the etched fourth side was, okay, this is kind of the happy medium of like
Mm.
we don't want to put 60 minutes of music on two sides of vinyl, but we don't want to put 60 minutes of music on four sides either. So we're going to put 60 minutes on three sides. And I love that. I think that's great because I think it helps the album flow better. I hate this idea because that's the other thing too. And you and I think it's different of like when you're an album listener, you want to listen to an album start to finish. Sequencing is important, like especially on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a different in the CD world, but when you think about on vinyl, you had two opening songs and two closing songs. because you got to open with side A and you close side A and you open side B
Mhm.
and close side B. And both of those are strategic in terms of what songs are placed there. And obviously, in the CD age and streaming age, we got away from that a lot. And so there's a whole conversation about like, would you ever listen to, I don't know, Sergeant Pepper at 45 RPM, knowing that you would have to flip a record 4 times? Like, that doesn't sound good at all. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
I don't care if the bass is better. Like that to me, it sort of defeats the purpose, right? Um, so these were also just two sort of not only etched sides, but in my opinion, just very cool colors. So this is one of my favorites, I guess, color variants. This is Fleet Foxes. This is Shore. Um,
Oh.
so Shore, to me, Fleet Foxes was the band you originally got me into.
Yeah. Hmm.
Their first two are great. Crack Up, which was their third one, lost me a bit. But then Shore, which was their fourth, was really strong in my opinion. So this variant's actually from Vinyl Me Please. This might be numbered. Yes, it is. So this was numbered to 2,500. This is number 115. It's a low number, 115. So
Hey, nice.
both to showcase um, the color. I don't know what they call this color, but
Hmm.
whatever it is,
Mm.
I always like it. And then the fourth side etching, which again, like I think is cute. Like you can kind
Yeah.
of get an idea
Yeah.
of the
It's
etching
it's
stuff in
really
there.
cool.
Um, and yeah, I just to me, and again, like I don't again, I think it's like one of those things where the reason that etchings exist might not have been communicated great, and so that's why some people have a problem with it. It's like very similar to like the whole Beatles thing with like AI was like
Mm.
Paul McCartney doesn't understand AI, so he says like we have a new Beatles song with AI,
Hmm.
and everybody's like, I don't want to hear an AI Beatles song, and you're like, well, not really, like
Yeah.
that's not exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like AI is just like such a hot term now. Like that's they marketed it to that, right? So
Right, exactly. And this other one was from a band I've talked about a couple times before, Coheed and Cambria,
oh sure.
ultimate nerdy progressive metalcore emo. I don't really know. They're all over the place, but if that just doesn't scream cheesy conceptual nonsense, I don't know what does. Of course, drummer on here was one Taylor Hawkins, rest in peace, from Foo Fighters. He jumped in for a recording on here. But again, I think this was a cool, I forget, this is like some kind of like burnt orange sort of thing, I think. Let's see. Well, I guess it's a
Oh
little more
wow.
red. Yeah,
That's
this
sick.
one, yeah, this one's a little bit, yeah, a little bit crazier. Yeah, and there's your sort of same thing. Not as much of, yeah, there's some, okay, yeah, so they threw in, of course, like their fancy symbols and all those different things that they use. Um,
Cool.
as well into some of these things. So yeah, I think they're cool. The artsy side of it, I think if it's done well, great. But if not, I'm totally okay with it too. Um, but to me, I'm all in of like, give me three sides of music instead of four, if that's all that's available, and I'm not going to complain about that. So
Definitely. And I think, that is a arguably a trinket, but it's not another thing. Like that
mhm.
they could very easily just like print off a card on the inside that has those same like, icon motif or something like that.
Right.
But, they I'm sure it costs more to produce that than it would otherwise. So it's a fun trinket that's baked into the disc and everything. I think you inspired me to pull this one real quick. I was going to show this before and decided not to, but in the spirit of etchings, so this is a single of uh, Jack White. Um, this is a 16 Saltines, um, and let's see here, Love is Blindness on one side. This is a 45.
Mhm.
Um, like kind of single thing here, but you can kind of see on the B side here
Oh yeah.
is the third man. Oh, there you go. I got it. the Third Man Records logo etching
Oh, that's cool.
on the side
Yeah,
there, which is pretty fun.
yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, always I'm sure somebody smarter than me who has more time to research this would know better, but this will probably not show up in the video, but so often the lettering that's hand carved into the master.
Mhm.
I think he also like leaves a lot of clues and stuff like that
Yeah.
as well, which is cool. So yeah, no, the etchings are cool. I like that. It's a nice little special nod without giving you more, paper garbage
Yeah.
to deal with.
For sure. Or again, having to, it's like I think about that record or both those records. If both of those were spread over four sides, it would just be annoying. Annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because not only are you, with it being on three sides, not only are you having to get up and switch it less, but you're also able to put more music on each of those sides. So it's like
Mhm.
you get, it makes you feel like you truly are listening to like the full thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Cool.
Because I feel like we could easily keep going into this rabbit hole forever.
Heck yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, hey man, the invitation's always there. Appreciate you jumping on and being a part of this journey with me.
always,
Um,
yeah.
and yeah, we'll think of maybe some other cool ideas and do some other stuff, and we'll go from there. And if you got any wacky ideas, call me.
I'll give you a ring. I'll give you a ring. I know your number.
That's
Yeah, I'll look through my collection here and see if I can kind of mash together some interesting theme and throw it your way. I love the one for one. I think it's really I
yeah.
wonder I wonder if a cool thing would be like you start with one and then I react to it and then we just keep reacting to them in real time.
So you
And
think
then see
that's
what comes out
cool?
of it.
Let me show
I
you
know.
this thing. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, hey, appreciate you taking the time, man. You have a good rest of the night. And yeah, for all those at home watching, appreciate you watching. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be more soon. So make sure you smash that like button, Sean.
Hit the bell for notifications. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, do all those things. I'm on a push for 165. Let's go.
There you go. We'll get you there.
Oh, thank God. All right, man.
Thanks, brother.
Cool. Have a good night, brother.
Me too.
We'll see you, man. Bye.